Well, good morning and welcome. And when I prepare for these videos, there's usually something that triggers a subject, and sometimes there isn't. And I was thinking this in preparation for today, what is the current conversation around the menopause? And so I've been looking into that. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Sam. I'm a nutritional therapist, and my aim is to help people going through the perimenopause, the menopause, and into their older years as easily and simply as possible to avoid all those sort of awful symptoms that crop up. And so that's what I want to talk about really today, is what people are talking about. So I've got my notes, and what I've found is that there is some change in the sort of around the conversation of menopause. It's not drastic, which is good. We don't want drastic because that shows we're on the wrong track completely, and we're not. We're on the right track. But certain emphases have changed. So the first thing I came across was basically HRT, and I'm not a doctor, I'm a nutritional therapist, so I'm not really I'm not at liberty to speak about HRT in any depth at all, just cursory, just surface level. But there has been, in the time I've been a nutritional therapist, there has been a turn in conversations around this. There was a lot of caution around HRT a while back, but now it's known that HRT can be incredibly beneficial to many people, but it is quite individual, and that is something that's come across a lot with the sort of conversations around menopause in recent years. It is very individual, and what works for one person might not necessarily work for another. But HRT, particularly bioidentical, has been found to have general benefits in many areas of menopause, such as bone health, such as anxiety, such as sleepless nights, etc. So that was number one. HRT, there is now a more positive view on its benefits to women at this stage of life. The second one is the sort of spotlight on the symptoms has moved from hot flushes and night sweats onto other areas which were not always recognised as being related, potentially, not always, but potentially to the menopause. And this is more to do with anxiety, insomnia, sleepless nights, joint pain. What else have I got down? General mood swings, also urinary symptoms, and as well as vaginal symptoms, which I think we kind of knew there was a correlation there. But those subjects are coming more into the fore, and there's more information around, particularly the brain relationship to the lower levels of estrogen at the menopause. My dogs are here, in case you had any doubt. I made a little note. This is something that came up a while back. If you have a frozen shoulder at this stage of life, that's been related to the menopause, and possibly to do with lower levels of estrogen and therefore higher levels of inflammation. But it's not fully understood as yet. But it's really interesting to see that there's more insight and more interest in looking at other symptoms that we may not have recognised as being part of this journey through perimenopause and menopause. So I think that's really good. My next one, let's have a look. Yes, is the workplace. There's been quite a bit of information provided, or management training around the menopause, so people understand what it is that women really experience. So not just for women, but for men as well. And I think this is of particular importance, that there is some sort of acknowledgement and training available. I have recently come across a very inappropriate response to a perimenopausal woman from a manager, which I would say in any other walk of life would probably get a warning. It was totally inappropriate, totally insensitive. It was rude, basically, incredibly rude. And that still goes on, and that really shouldn't be the case. So we need to reduce that sort of stigma around it, and I think there's some work going towards that. There's also some places are looking at flexible working for women going through this stage, recognising the difficulties. Temperature controlled spaces also cropped up. Now this is a difficult one, and my battery's going to go any minute, so I'll see if I can do this section. Every woman going through this stage of life experiences a different situation when it comes to temperature. So one woman may complain it's cold, another will say it's too hot. We're not going to win with this one. If you've got open offices, we're not going to win. We just need to accept that we need to wear layers. I'm going to pause and change my battery. Right, I'm back. Sorry about that. The next area of conversation is research. One lady commented a little while back against one of my videos saying there is no research in menopause, and there isn't to the greater extent. There's very, very little, and in fact there's very little research that's included women of any sort of hormonal age, let's say, for want of a better description, basically because we're so our monthly cycle is very difficult to manage when it comes to research for stable information. So women have been excluded from a lot of research over the years. But this is good news, because we know that women, when they present symptoms for cardiovascular disease, it is different to men. And this has been misdiagnosed, or not misdiagnosed, but missed on more than one occasion. And women have gone home told they're fine, and then unfortunately they have a heart attack an hour later. That's one of the situations that can occur. So there's more research into this, which is fantastic. There's more investment, so this can actually occur. And they're looking more into the different types of treatments. I've mentioned cardiovascular disease, bone health as well, and also the cognitive challenges, the brain situation, the foggy brain and the anxiety, depression that comes in. There's more research going into that, so this is really welcome, and hopefully we will see some great sort of movement forward in this arena at some point. I'm hoping there'll be natural remedies as well. Social media, there's a lot on social media. It's me. There's a lot that's good, and there's a lot that's really not very good at all. And this is where there's a bit of difficulty, I think. It's finding people who, I won't say know what they're talking about, but people who are keeping up with what's happening, because the science does show how we get things wrong over the years, and how a belief at one point has been disproven, 10 years later. And I think being aware that this is what we know at this moment in time, this is what is believed to be the case with research and clinical experience. I think clinical experience, when you're working with women in whatever field you're in, when you're working with women going through this stage of life, there's a lot that comes up that you see the patterns, and those patterns are important. But I do hear a number of people who aren't trained in any field at all and are talking with the good intention, but they're misguided because they haven't got the full picture. And I think that's where the danger occurs. And that's when when I speak about supplements, I always say, get some advice, because you're different to this person. And if you're on medication, there may be an interaction which could be a really dangerous one. So social media is a great one for you to say, interesting, I'll go and find out more about it, and do some more research yourself. So I'd say use the social media forums for that purpose. When you've got a qualified person, I think that makes a difference. But even so, even now, I will follow a doctor talking about something, and I'll have a query about what they've presented, and I'll go and look at what I can find, see what I can find in the way of research, what other people are saying. Is this still the belief, or is there something else going on? So, you know, question it is what I'm saying. Have it as a starting point. That's what I like about social media. It triggers me to go and look at something else and say, what's true here, what isn't true, what else could it be? There's a lot around exercise and nutrition, and that is fantastic. And from my personal experience, I would say they are great places to start. So a good focus on strength training, about having adequate protein, about the potential of muscle loss and bone health, the relationship there, and also heart health, which I think is incredibly important. And historically, in my field, with women going through this stage, hasn't had the emphasis it should have had. I'm not going to say it's been overlooked, because that's not true, but it hasn't had the emphasis that I think it really deserves. There's more around perimenopause and the years before that kicks in. Women are appearing to go through perimenopause younger than so 10, 20 years ago. So that's really important, and understanding the impact that can have. And then there's the equality of care in menopause. What is really coming forth now is that the experience that women have is very individual. We are not all the same. We don't all get hot flushes. We don't all get brain fog. We don't all kick in at 45. We don't all get through it by 51. You know, there's too many variations. People get, you know, there's variations. But there's more interest and discussion around individual care, and also recognising different communities and what those different communities may experience. Because living in different communities, we can have similar. We may be more susceptible to, if we have a particular background, and so that sort of information is also being taken more seriously and having greater emphasis when it's being dealt with, and I think that's really important. So yes, researchers, clinicians are working to understand the variations and how to access the right kind of care for the individual, so they get the right sort of treatments and that the outcomes that they really need. So there's quite a lot going on in the development of what people are looking into to do with perimenopause and menopause. It's not, as I say, really vastly different to what we've been through before, but it's greater emphasis, particularly the recognition of individualism, the greater research going into it, and the push for greater understanding in, you know, the wider community. It may be, and I don't know this as fact, that women in this modern world experience a wider range of symptoms than perhaps ancestors, because of all the external influences that we have with not so much nutrition in our food as there used to be, nutrient deficiency in the food itself, more processed foods that are being consumed, our exposure to more phytoestrogens than perhaps ever before. It may be that we are experiencing a greater number of symptoms, but as I say, I don't know that's fact. I haven't looked that up, but I do hear more than I recall hearing years ago. But also, I suppose I ought to admit that often this wasn't an open conversation. Menopause was, you know, behind closed doors. It wasn't openly discussed. It was private. It wasn't to be discussed in front of families or men or people in general. It was kept very quiet, as many issues to do with females have been. So that may be the case. So these are things that you may want to be looking into yourselves. Be careful with social media, as I say. Take it as inspiration to find out more. And ask questions if you do go and see any professional, whether it's your GP or a therapist. Ask questions. Don't be afraid to. try to increase your understanding, and I think it will really help you in the long run. So I hope this has been helpful. Please like and subscribe if you'd like to, and please share this with anybody who may benefit, and let me know what it is you'd like to know more about when it comes to this stage of our life. It may not be directly related to menopause. If you want to know more about something else to do with longevity, let me know. And thank you for joining me today. Take care. Bye bye.